when we heed a certain call, when the world must come together as one. There are people dying. Oh, when it's time to lend a hand to life, the greatest gift of all. We can't go on pretending day by day that someone somewhere will soon make a change. We all a part of God's great big family, and the truth, you know, love is all we need. We are the world, we are the children, we are the ones who make a brighter day. So let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's true, we make a better day, just you and me.
All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to 40 Days for Life. We're a pro-life movement out here in Vacaville, California on Nut Tree Boulevard. Behind us is a Planned Parenthood where abortions are performed every single day of the week and babies are dying, unfortunately. So we wanted to take a few minutes to speak with the people who come out here on a regular basis to pray, to fast, to offer sacrifice, and to do what they can to bring public awareness to abortion, to the evil of abortion, and to also bring awareness to the local community that right behind me here there is in fact a Planned Parenthood, and it's in fact killing babies every single day. So we're going to take a few minutes over the next half an hour. We're going to talk to some different people who are committed to the cause of the culture of life. I'm here with Isidro outside the Planned Parenthood in Vacaville, California on Nut Tree Boulevard. Isidro has been a very staunch supporter of the 40 Days for Life, very big in the pro-life movement. So we're going to spend a few minutes talking to him today about why he does what he does and why he's so passionate about coming out here and proclaiming the pro-life message. Isidro, what kind of brought you into the pro-life ministry?
First of all, thank you for inviting me, Joe. And what brought me here is the lives of those unborn babies. I know that there are 40,000 babies being killed a day, and that brought me in. I want to do something about that. If we can save the life of one baby, that's very important for us.
Okay. How long have you been involved in the pro-life movement?
Since March 15, 2009, it's about 32 months.
About 32 months now you've been involved in the pro-life movement. You know, and I've seen you on the side of the road personally, driving by, and I see you there in the rain. I see you in the high heat. I see you in the wind. I see you in some nasty, nasty conditions. But you're so committed to the cause. How have you seen the hand of God work in the ministry? Personally, how have you seen God work, and what type of miracles have you seen being a part of this particular movement over the last couple of years?
Clearly 36 miracles, because there are 36 babies saved, and there's a lot of conversions that the people start praying the rosary, and our Lord and Our Lady there changed them to conversion, and it's very important for us.
And you've seen 36 lives saved over a 3-year period. That's phenomenal. I mean, just one saved baby is enough for you, I take it.
If I been able to save one baby a year, that'll make me happy. But God is generous. He already saved 36 that we know of. Right. Maybe there are more, but we're happy to see that there are 36 babies saved.
Okay. For you, when you speak of the pro-life movement and the issues that are associated with the pro-life, when does life begin for you?
At conception is what the Catholic Church teaches us, that at conception there is a human being, and we have to defend the life from conception to natural death.
And kind of a final thought to kind of wrap it up, Isidro. Has anything happened to you when you've been out here praying that you haven't expected, that maybe good, bad, or indifferent, or maybe one of each, but something that kind of caught you by surprise?
Yes, there are two men that got behind my back, and they threatened me, and they told me to get out of this place, or otherwise they could kill me. That really shocked me, but I'm still doing this for the glory of God.
Right, right. Wow, that's awfully courageous. I mean, to be able to continue to come back when a threat has been made on your life. I think it's important that we point out that this is definitely a heated topic. I mean, the topic of abortion in this country has been very, very hotly and contested and debated. And I think we need to keep in mind that you know, sometimes it can get very aggressive on those that are out here praying and trying to peacefully demonstrate what is the gospel message, right? Saving the life. And in your case, potentially you were willing to give your life for another, which is one of the greatest commandments we have following Jesus Christ, which is to lay down your life for another person. And by you continuing to do what you do, you put yourself in that situation. Well, you're a great example to me, and I know to many others, and I want to thank you for your time today.
God bless you, and thank you for inviting me. And here I am. I ask everybody to pray for us. God bless you.
Thank you, Isidro. I wanted to welcome Brittany to the interview.
Thank you.
And one of the basic questions I think I'd like to ask you right off the bat is, when does life begin?
Life begins at the moment of conception, and I think it's pretty obvious because God says, you know, He knew us before we were created in the womb. So.
Right, right. I think it's out of the book of Jeremiah, actually. What's so wrong about the abortion industry as a whole, in your opinion?
Well, I think that, you know, I think that women think it's going to help them when really it makes them suffer just as it is killing a child. So I don't think it's good for the woman or for the child. You know, obviously the child dies, but the mother suffers for the rest of her life, and that's what I don't want to see happen anymore.
That's true. I'm glad you hit on both points. I think a lot of it tends to get a little polarized with respect to the death of a child, which is in fact exactly what is taking place at the hands of the abortionist. But the woman does suffer, and in a lot of cases suffers very dearly for a very, very long period of time. That's a trauma that the world doesn't need either. What got you so involved in the pro-life ministry, and where do you get your passion for supporting this particular type of an apostolate?
You know, I didn't know very much about it until a year ago, and it was at this age when a lot of my friends started to be heavily influenced by using contraception or by believing that abortion was okay. And I saw so many of my friends taking the first step. You know, they were very convicted, and I heard great speaks about being pro-life and about what the trauma for women that that they go through when they have an abortion, and for the children. And so it was really by the examples of others. And then finally, someone told me. They asked me to lead 40 Days for Life, and that's when I really had to decide if I was going to, take a strong stance or not. And so,
that's wonderful. So God has given you the courage to step up and lead the 40 Days for Life here in Vacaville, California. What can you tell us a little bit about 40 Days for Life, kind of what it is and how it's how it works, so to speak?
I love 40 Days for Life because it is about prayer before anything else. So it's not our science that's going to change people. It's not like a million people out here that's going to change people. It's going to be the fact that we're praying and fasting. And so the whole idea of 40 Days for Life is that we pray continuously for 12 hours a day, collectively as a group, that we fast and that we outreach. So we also have a responsibility to tell women the truth. But first and foremost, our prayers are going to change.
No, that's beautiful, Brittany, how you kind of wrapped it up. I mean, it's more than just sort of a one-prong approach. Praying is important, and it's the most important thing we can do to overcome the evil and the atrocities that abortion has brought to our country, and have come to human beings in general. Both men and women suffer as a result of abortion. I liked how you talked about prayer, fasting, and outreach. I think the fasting part gets left out a lot, and I'd like you to kind of speak specifically about how y'all fast in particular, and how you think that does, in fact, make a difference.
You know, we never said like everyone should do the same thing, because certainly it's going to be things that are hard for me aren't going to be hard for others. You know, and some of them happen just incidentally, because I had an idea what I was going to fast. It's not always just food. There's a lot of other things that I've given up. Maybe you give up your TV or your radio or anything that's hard for you to go without on a day-to-day basis. I didn't realize this, but I'm definitely fasting from sleep because I haven't gotten nearly as much sleep as I'm used to, and it's been really great for me, because it's also that's something I can offer up that I didn't even expect or plan to do.
What a beautiful gift. It's so wonderful when you can suffer for Christ, right? You can suffer for the kingdom and for the salvation of souls. And I like how you throw that out there. Fasting, I think, oftentimes, you know, people correspond that to food. But really, you can fast from all kinds of things. Typically, the things that you like the most are the most difficult to fast from, and yet those are the ones that are probably bring about the most graces. So it's really beautiful that you come it from that perspective. What are your thoughts? You know, 40 Days for Life is kind of winding down. So as you look back over this particular 40 Days for Life, what are some of the highlights and some of the thoughts that you have that you can share with us?
Well, there's two. There's two amazing things that happen here, specifically in Vacaville, because it's the first time. First of all, it brought the churches together. You know, we became a community of Christians. So we have all denominations of churches out here praying with us. And secondly, it made our town aware that we even have an abortion clinic. You know, a lot of people were so surprised to know that there is a clinic here that performs abortion and kills children on a daily basis. So those two things were an amazing gift of this 40 days vigil.
That's beautiful. You know, Brittany, I'd like to kind of sum it up with what you talked about in the beginning about being an example. And it's an honor for me to be standing here talking with you today, because your example and your courage to take a leadership role to be out here is not only an example to me and to everybody watching this program, but is also an example to everybody who drives by and everybody who's over there holding a sign praying in harmony with what it is that you're doing. So thank you for being an example to us, because we know, in fact, you are making a huge difference.
Thank you very much.
Hi, we are here with Helene over at the outside the Planned Parenthood in Vacaville, California, and we appreciate you taking the time to come over and talk with us for a little bit.
No problem. It's my pleasure.
Thank you, Helene. One of the first questions I want to start with is, you know, in your opinion, when does life begin?
Well, I'm an RN, okay, and science has proven that life begins at conception when the sperm meets the egg. I mean, that's scientific fact.
And so, I mean, from the medical world, it's just undisputable. I mean, it is what it is.
Well, it is what it is. There are people who are trying to change that. They're trying to actually change medical textbooks to say that it doesn't start then, to support the other stuff.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is that is when life begins.
So, Helene, what, you know, being a nurse, you know, many nurses I've known, they're very compassionate and they love to work with people and they love to help people. But, you know, for you personally, what is it that's kind of welled up with inside of you to be so committed to being pro-life and coming out and spending time here to tell others that, you know, every life is precious and that we have to have an end to abortion?
I'm not sure how best to answer that, except the fact that I remember back when I was in high school, I remember back then putting up brochures on the bulletin board, you know, for pictures of, you know, the aborted babies. And as I've grown and gone through nursing school, to me, everything that I learned pointed me more in the direction of, you know, the preciousness of life. And as for now, I think it's just sad because, you know, as a nurse, I do want to help people. You want to feel compassionate. And what you see in the world is that really there's so much, there isn't the compassion. There's a lot more selfishness and greed. And, you know, I think the other thing is there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of sense of being overwhelmed and really not trusting, like who's going to take care of me, you know, or who's going to help me. You know, we live in a world that's gotten, you know, kind of big, and there's a lot of red tape. A lot of people aren't near their families and their support systems anymore. So I think, you know, one of the things that works against this is the fact that women do not feel supported. You know, they talk about choice, but when they do the research, they say that, you know, most women who have abortions feel they don't have a choice. So they're choosing something because they feel like they don't have a choice, and it's because people as individuals, we're not being compassionate to one another. We're not taking care of one another, and people feel stranded and alone. And, you know, I hate the fact that, you know, that people would have to feel that way, because it shouldn't be, especially in a nation like this. You know, we should be able to take care of one another, that people don't feel like they don't have a choice, and they have to, like, cause violence to their body.
Right. Well, it's interesting. It's kind of a light that I hadn't seen shed on this topic before. You talk about how, you know, there being choices, quote unquote, pro-choice, but the reality is a lot of these women feel like they're kind of backed into a corner and they don't know where they go and they don't know what to do. And your take is that, you know, first and foremost, be pro-life for the right reason. And secondly, there's a lot of services and there's a lot of programs out there who are more than willing, well-funded and well-staffed, who can help women who find themselves in a difficult situation to bring the baby to term and then to provide a beautiful home for that child.
Absolutely. I mean, actually, I volunteer for a local pregnancy resource center. I do ultrasounds on, you know, women who, you know, are pregnant and, you know, need to see or have more information, get support. The fact that, yes, we have services and we have things out there, but, it's all about things that aren't services, about people, helping people, families. I mean, there's lots of ways to be pro-life. If your neighbor has a bunch of kids, offer to babysit them for a day. People want to feel, if they're having a family, that there is community support.
Now, what's it like when you have women that come into the pregnancy centers and they don't feel like they know what to do, or they don't feel like there's adequate help out there, and they truly feel and have been duped into believing that killing the child within their womb is the only way out, is the only answer? How do you handle women when they're in this particular state of mind, battling these demons, if you will, when you're working with them in the pregnancy centers, showing them that, that is simply just not the case?
Well, the counselors have a different role than I do, but basically what we're trying to do is let people know they do have a support system. A lot of people don't know what's available. I'm able to do an ultrasound and showing them this baby inside there, showing them the heartbeat, the little arms and legs kicking around, and it's amazing. I mean, they're looking at this, at this child, and they can see that it's not a mass of cells. It's a live organism that's moving, and they can connect a lot more. And whenever people want to see things to believe things. Well, that's a way to say this is what you can see, and to just give them that support and to be there, and never condemn them in any way. Just basically like, we're here to help you.
It's interesting. I like the part about the ultrasound. I just did an interview with an individual recently who works at a statewide pro-life agency, and they talked about that 80% of women who do in fact get an ultrasound and do in fact see the child that is growing within their womb, in fact choose life.
Well, absolutely. In fact, and they've shown that, even some of the big major abortionists from way back, Dr. Nathanson, who had either performed or done 10,000 or more. I don't remember the numbers, but the idea is when he was having an abortion that he did, ultrasound, he and the ultrasound technician both said they can't do this anymore. So here they were performing them, and they were seeing what it was, but they didn't get to see that window into there, what's happening to that child when it's being aborted. And what they found is the baby actually tries to get away, the heart rate goes up, the child is in trauma, it's stressed out, it's being murdered, and they realize that this is a danger, and that's just a little tiny baby inside there who, hasn't even come out yet.
Thank you so much for sharing with us today. It's been wonderful to have the insights and the perspective of someone who has medical training, is in fact a registered nurse, and spends times in the pregnancy centers and can give us that unique window to what it's really like, and I think helps us see through the propaganda that oftentimes gets put in the mainstream media, showing that that they're not options, and death is the only way out. But in fact, that's not the case. And thank you for giving us so much hope.
Could I say one other thing? When we think about, when you're talking to people, some people have a faith base and some people are not. And when people who don't believe in God, and that aspect of it, that can be difficult to speak to. But if you even go back into philosophy, the early Greek philosophers like Aristotle and Socrates and everything like that, those men who, of course, came before Christ, they weren't Jewish, they were pagans, they believed in virtue and morality. And if anybody were to read that early philosophy, they would see that they held a high store in virtue and morality. And just using those things, you can show, about how important life is and the choices that we make. You don't have to be a Christian, to see that there is a reason to support and protect life.
We are here with Sherry and Kathy, and we're just outside the 40 Days for Life, which is the pro-life movement here in Vacaville, California. We're standing outside of a Planned Parenthood, and these two women were gracious enough to come over and talk to us a little bit about why they do what they do. What, coming out here and spending time praying and being a witness to the public at large is challenging. It takes a lot of courage to come out and do what it is you women do on a regular basis. What has moved you to be so passionate about this particular cause? What gets you out of bed every morning when you know this is on the plate for the day and say, I'm ready to do it, and I'm gonna give it everything I got?
Well, for me, I think it's the fact that I live in a great nation, but this is a black mark on our nation. If this nation cannot protect its most innocent individuals, which are the unborn, then that doesn't speak very well for us. And I love living in this nation, but the fact that we have legalized abortion pains me deeply. And so I feel I should do something, whatever I can, to bring that to light.
So, having spent time out here praying in public, there has to be times that you've seen the hand of God at work. Can you tell us about one such example?
I haven't seen any dramatic examples, but I would say that it's really eye-opening to see when you're standing here and you feel the love and the camaraderie, and you see the happiness on the faces of the people who are here praying, the peace that we have in our hearts, and you see actually a lot of really friendly hand signals and such going by, but you see the faces of the people who disagree with us, and they're very often very angry, and they have their reasons for feeling that way, but it's a real contrast, and I find it very interesting.
It's definitely a battlefield. I mean, anybody who spent any time out sidewalk counseling or spent time praying on the sidewalk can tell you very clearly that there's a spiritual battle going on, and there's people who are vehemently opposed to pro-lifers being here, and then there's people who are obviously vehemently pro-life. We're talking with David and Cindy Mudge, two very staunch pro-life individuals, a pro-life Catholics, and a very wonderful and holy pro-life couple. And we want to talk to them a little bit about why they do what they do. They're very involved in this cause. Let's start with the basics. When does life begin for you guys?
Life begins at conception. It's taught in our faith, but it's also taught in science. It's plain and simple. The science supports it. So often people who are not pro-life want to talk about the science of things, but they're sometimes unwilling to listen to the science that doesn't support their cause, and obviously this does support the cause, our cause.
Now, there's many things that you can be involved in. There's many apostolates that people can do with the very little free time it is we have these days. Why is it you guys are so committed to the pro-life cause?
Well, I have been pro-life my whole life. My dad was, his father had wanted him to get an abortion. His mom, my grandmother, and she chose life. And so I remembering at a young age, soon after Roe v. Wade was passed, that we were out standing at a sidewalk with signs. And so I wasn't that old. And then we've been participating with life chains since then. And somewhere on Catholic radio or an email, I heard about 40 Days for Life. And we started going over to Fairfield Planned Parenthood before 40 Days even got started there, and we would pray there from 9 to 10, along with people that were already doing sidewalk counseling, and then some people from St. Mary's, and so we just started praying there for the end of abortion. So, and then I think we go through periods where life, we get a deeper love of God and a deeper understanding of how much He loves us, and that then your enthusiasm deepens, your motivation deepens, and you just want to share when you just want to share that with other people of how precious their life is. God gave us every day to enjoy. He gave us a beautiful sky, the green trees, the flowers. He gave it all to us as a gift for us each day to enjoy, and so you just want to share that with other people to let them know how important they are and how much their life matters, no matter how small. As the Dr. Seuss said, a life is life, no matter how little it is. Right. And the DNA. Recently, there's a video that's come out called 180movie.com, and it is phenomenal. It talked about what went on over in the concentration camps, over what Hitler's philosophy was that Jews were non-human. And when you start thinking about that, well, wait a minute, they are human, and a life at conception is a human being. It has all the DNA, everything to make a human being. And so how can we say, oh no, it's not a life until 3 months, or until 6 months, or until it's born outside? It's a human being at that moment of conception, when those two DNAs that God gave us of bringing man and woman together and created that new life.
Thank you for sharing that. It sounds like it was very, very personal, and you were involved very, very early in this particular movement, and I can see that where your passion comes from. And it's also interesting how you talk about the concentration camps and the Holocaust, and And talking to you earlier, I know you've had the chance while living in Europe to visit Dachau and those other places of mass evil and mass killings. And you're right, you know, the minute you're able to strip an individual of their personhood, then they have no rights. And once you do that, you can do anything. So the moment of conception gives that little baby the full rights of being a human person and therefore protected as it ought to be. And that's what we're trying to do. Ultimately, hopefully one day, we can overturn the Roe versus Wade. That's certainly a goal. So David, talk to me a little bit. Now you have some teenage daughters and you've got a young son. Being so involved in this movement, how has it impacted your children, and kind of what have you seen as a result in their own life as they embrace the pro-life ministry as well?
They're very much involved. Yes, they hear the pro-life statements at home. And we talk about pro-life certainly whenever the opportunity is presented. But they have chosen themselves to be pro-life. They understand when life begins. They understand that life is precious, and they understand that if there are not people willing to stand up and make a statement and put themselves on the line a little bit sometimes, then you're not fulfilling the work that God has for you. You're not going along the path that He has for you. There's so many opportunities to share God, to share His teachings, to share our pro-life feelings, understandings, our passion. And certainly the girls have taken that on. Andrew, a little young yet, but he's out here too, and he's holding the sign, and he gets it, and he understands that babies are dying, and that it's something that we need to stand up against. It's something that we need to be on the front lines for, and we need to do our part to try and overturn Roe v. Wade, to try and you know, Joe, it's not always just about trying to overturn things. Honestly, a lot of times it's just trying to help people understand, help people that work in these clinics, and help people that who are pro-choice to understand maybe what they're not getting about when life starts and the importance of every life, not just theirs. We can't be selfish.
That's beautiful how you put it. You talk about the responsibility of a mother and a father and how they have to step up and lead by example. And I admire both of you for coming out here faithfully and in doing that, you know, because actions speak louder than words. Kind of round it out, I'd like you to talk about an experience that you had out here at this particular location that I would say was quite profound. Can you share a little bit with us, please?
Absolutely. I think it was the second week of this particular 40 Days for Life, and I was out here in the morning with a group of 4 or 5 other people, just praying, walking up and down the sidewalk. And one of the ladies who was here was getting ready to leave. She'd been here for about an hour and a half, and it was just time for her to go home. And as she walked towards the driveway behind us, I saw another woman come up, walking up to her with a sense of purpose in her walk. And I was like, oh no, it looks like our first confrontation. I was completely wrong. Instead, it was an absolute confirmation of what we're doing. She pulled out a keychain and showed Frances a picture of her 14-year-old granddaughter and said, this is my granddaughter. She's 14 years old. I've had custody of her since she was 4 months. 14 years ago, my daughter was on her way to have an abortion. And when she got there, there were people like you standing in front of that clinic praying, and she changed her mind. And today I have a beautiful granddaughter because of people like you. And the last thing she says is, you guys do make a difference. And I mean, that's why we're here. We're here to make a difference. We're here to help people understand. In the long run, we're here to save babies.
Well, what a beautiful round out to our interview. The sincerity and the truth, the way you lay it out there, and I think it's a blessing from God, you know, to have someone come up and affirm what you're doing. You know what you're doing is right, and it is tough, but that little something extra just gives you that little extra energy to kind of keep going strong, and that's God, and that's the way that He loves us. He's always there for us when we need it, and I want to say thank you to the both of you for your excellent work, and please continue to keep up the great work and the saving of lives.